All right, good afternoon, everyone. It's Thursday, March 4th. Welcome to the Ways and Means hearing. Today we have a hearing on 9 different bills. We're starting with some tax bills, moving on to a bill on racing and gaming, and then ending with some bills regarding economic development. Reminding everyone about the 3-minute time limit. Again, so 9 bills. We only have about 15 people signed up to testify beyond the sponsors, so not a particularly long day. And we will get started. Delegate Cham, we have House Bill 1161. Welcome back to Ways and Means.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you for having me to the committee. Thank you very much for your time. I just want to ask that you first be gentle with the new delegate. This is only my second bill. So, okay, I petition for grace and mercy. Okay. So many families have been impacted and continue to be impacted by the ramifications of COVID-19. Families are home more, parents are working from home, children have taken over their parents' home office. Internet Wi-Fi plans have been adjusted to accommodate Wi-Fi usage, and the use of electricity has increased. Not to mention instructional materials for the student to access their learning successfully. Paper, crayons, coloring pencils, anything for art, athletic supplies, exercise for your PE class. COVID-19 has forced us to reimagine the way students access their learning at home, and parents are certainly more involved in their child's learning now more than ever before. And the more children, the merrier. Tax credit of $250 for each child just might make a small or big difference for a family of a single child or family of 5. I encourage the committee to look favorably upon this bill as we provide some relief to parents and for children. Thank you for your time. I look forward to a favorable outcome.
Thank you. Any questions for the delegate? Wow, there is a question. Delegate Long, but you're muted.
We all used to raise our hands anytime a new delegate come in, so.
That's true. I thought we'd already done that with her, but you're right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Delegate Long, for being more on top of that. Yes, Delegate Cham, we like to have all the hands raised in the room, or when somebody has their intern presenting a bill. It's another.
Oh, all right, great. Like an initiation, I guess.
That's right. It's harder for us to make that happen in this new world. Are there any other questions for Delegate Cham? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. No one else is signed up on this bill. We will next go to Delegate Kipke, Mr. Minority Leader, House Bill 1183.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of committee. This Delegate Nick Kipke, this bill would, I think, resolve something that is unfair and counterproductive for nonprofits in our state. When there was federal tax code changes, most recently, I think for the purposes of simplification, a large group of Maryland taxpayers are now taking a standard deduction, but they are no longer able to write off any of their charitable deductions. While the motivation is for wealthier Marylanders to itemize, they can still get the full benefit of charitable deductions, and also they get the full benefit of that motivation for charitable deductions. Over the course of the last year, many Marylanders of all means have been extremely generous to food banks and other nonprofits who are doing tremendous work in our communities. And it just reminded me that, you know, folks who take that standard deduction, who are largely middle-class Marylanders, they lose, they lose that benefit and that motivation from a tax perspective to contribute charitably. So what this bill does is it would allow for folks who take the standard deduction, which the federal standard deduction, which I remind you are largely lower and middle class people. And it allows them the benefit to deduct charitable deductions, charitable contributions in the same manner that they were able to in the past. So for that reason, I encourage you to consider it favorably and be glad to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Delegate. Are there any questions for Delegate Kipke? All right. Seeing no questions, and in fact, there's no one signed up to testify today. Thank you, Delegate Kipke. We're done with the hearing on
Thank
House
you.
1183. Delegate Hartman, House Bill 1177.
Thank you and good afternoon, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee. For the record, Delegate Wayne Hartman here with House Bill 1177. It is an income tax subtraction modification for COVID-19 related distributions from the retirement income. It's an emergency bill that creates a subtraction against state income tax for individuals who make a qualified COVID-19 related distribution from their retirement account. The maximum value of the subtraction modification equal to $100,000 of the qualified distribution. So during the taxable year beginning after December 31st, 2019, but before January 1st, 2021, who was exempt from the tax on early distribution under the CARES Act. So this is modeled off of the federal program, whereas the CARES Act eliminated the 10% penalty that's typically put on an early withdrawal from a retirement account. So a COVID-19 related distribution would be if the individual or the individual spouse or dependent children were diagnosed with COVID-19, if due to the pandemic, the individual experienced adverse financial consequences because of being quarantined, furloughed, laid off, or having work hours reduced, being unable to work because of a lack of childcare, or closing or reducing the hours of the business that the individual owns or operates. So what did surprise me with this bill, that, I'm sure after hearing about this bill, you're wondering, how do I come up with such a wonderful idea? And it was because of a constituent reached out to me concerned that they had to make a withdrawal and they may have to make another withdrawal to pay the tax to get through the hardship. And I thought, someone's trying to use their own money as opposed to relying on government money to help themselves through it. But undisputedly, I think this is the most disputable fiscal note that I've ever seen. This, you have to keep in mind, is for an early withdrawal. So I think the fiscal note, we know it assumes the worst case scenario, but this is for people that would not have been dipping into the retirement funds if it wasn't for the pandemic. So I have to wonder where the fiscal note came from, because it truly is, 107 million. I don't see where that's even fathomable. It may be detracting from future state taxes, but this is early withdrawals to get through the hardships created by the pandemic. I think we have about 30 sponsors signed up. So with that, no, I'm just kidding. With that, I'll leave it for any questions.
Delegate Hartman, I love how you're trying to help people, but how would I'm trying to imagine the administration of this, and how do we know that someone is doing this for a pandemic related reason?
Well, they would have to prove their hardship through the COVID-19. The federal government created the guidelines for it. I'm certainly not smart enough to come up with the guidelines. So I guess there would, if they were audited, they would have the burden of proving that they were diagnosed. If their household, we hear it all the time from people in different testimony, how they're losing childcare and all the hardships that place. We heard from so many business owners. I don't think it's hard to prove someone, had that impact. I think, an audit would show if they're being truthful or not.
Okay. Delegate Hornberger?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I've had to work with the federal government, and I know that the Fed has taken some strides to do hold harmless on withdrawal from your retirement plan. I think when the Fed, they call it the TSP. So you're just looking to kind of copy what's happening at the federal level. Is that an accurate statement?
Absolutely. This was modeled after the federal program. I didn't even know that was part of the CARES Act until the person reached out to me. And, that helped make that money accessible to them, eliminating the 10% penalty. And then, the realization came to this person that they're going to have to pay tax on, they may have to make another withdrawal. So I think we really need to help people that are trying to help themselves. And this is a great way to do it. And there's
and it looks like, I think you mentioned this, but it looks like the fiscal note, it just kind of assumes that everybody is just going to do a fire sale on their retirements. It's maybe a little inflated, but I kind of noticed that too. So thank you for bringing the bill.
Thank you.
And Delegate Hartman, you can always, if you haven't already, you can certainly reach out to the fiscal note writer to understand the assumptions that they used.
I may want to do that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Delegate Hartman? All right, well, in fact, there's nobody signed up to testify. So we will go to the next bill. Delegate Lutke, House Bill 1209.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 1209, colleagues, is yet another bill dealing with the relative taxation rates for the rental car industry and the peer-to-peer car sharing industry. The committee's heard extensive testimony on these issues already, so I asked the various interests involved not to sign up to testify today so as not to be duplicative. And this bill, I will say, essentially at this point is a placeholder bill. There are a number of conversations going on with folks on other committees about related issues involving these two industries, and those conversations are ongoing. So I would not ask for a favorable report yet because the bill in its current posture is not where it will likely end up being. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, I think I know the Revenue Subcommittee Chair if you want me to connect with him on your behalf. All right, any questions on House Bill 1209? Nice job in getting the industry to not sign up. Done with the hearing on House Bill 1209. Moving right along. Delegate Lasanti, House Bill 1230.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and pardon me, members of the committee. House Bill 1230 is a very simple and modest tax relief for computer equipment. During the COVID lockdown, most people that we know needed access to computer equipment and had to either dip into their savings or max out their credit cards to buy computer equipment to either have access to education for distance learning or to continue their job. So this is a very modest tax credit, just $750 to allow people to not have to pay the sales tax if they purchased computer equipment for those purposes. It is supported by the Maryland Chamber of Commerce and the Retailers Association. I have forwarded an amendment to the committee to address an objection from local government, basically only making it enabling to local government. It's a very straightforward tax. It's only for 1 year. I just want to point out to everybody that annually the state does a tax-free holiday on school supplies and school books and school clothes, and the revenue loss for that negates, because we really didn't do it this year because nobody really bought school clothes or back to school clothes and things like that. So the cost of this bill really is negated by the fact that we were not able to do that tax-free holiday this year. So it's a tax-free holiday on computer equipment. So with that, I ask for a favorable report.
Thank you, Delegate. Questions for Delegate Lasanti. Delegate Long?
Yeah, thank you for bringing this bill. Good idea. Thank you. Can you write off purchases for educational uses like computers and stuff on your federal taxes?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I'm just curious. Anyway, thank you for bringing this bill. It's a good idea.
Thank you. Any additional questions? All right, thank you very much. Thank you, Delegate Lasanti, and there's no one signed up on this bill either. So we're done with the hearing on House Bill 1230. We do have 4 more bills, colleagues, and they will go a little bit slower because they actually have witnesses signed up. Excuse me, we're gonna switch now from the tax subject to the area of racing and gaming. Delegate Hornberger, House Bill 1259.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Delegate Kevin Hornberger on this Fair Hill bill. As you members of the committee that have been on for a number of years know all about the wonderful things that have happened there in Cecil County at one of our largest state parks. specifically in terms of horse racing and horse eventing. The bill that we have before us today seeks to basically create operating funds for Fair Hill and the soon-to-be five-star events that will be taking place there. Over the last 2 years, this body has granted funds in excess of $20 million to help fix up a track that is one of the nicest tracks in the world, but was a bit dated for the purposes of steeplechase racing. And I'm happy to report that the ribbon has been cut, and they did have one event there already. However, there's not an appropriation for operating funds. In order to host this, it's on the same level. I guess the closest comparison would be Kentucky and all the races that go on there. But it is a worldwide venue, and it attracts folks from all over the world to show their horses, as well as do horse transactions, sell the horses, horse trading, of course, and then all the other things that go along with that five-star venue. This bill is a funding mandate, and it would be administered by the DNR. It would be administered purely in the special event zone, which is within the envelope of the Fair Hill Racecourse, which is around, the entire park is 2,500 acres. This represents around 150. So we are asking for a favorable rating on this. We also have an amendment. That amendment would add another $500,000 for the purposes of the purses and operating. Again, this is something that would be administered by the state to keep the track open and running in good shape. And it would be unfortunate if we were able to get done this course and have it in tip-top shape and not be able to keep it the way that it is now and have those events. Also notice that there is a sunset on the bill. And the reason that there is a sunset on the bill, we believe after that passage of time, that it will be fully self-sustaining and will create a huge windfall over these 5 years in the out years for all of Maryland and in that regional area in the arena of horse racing. So with that, I'd like to take any questions, and I know we have a couple folks signed up to speak on the bill as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Delegate. Any questions for Delegate Hornberger? All right. Seeing no questions, but we do have a few people signed up in favor. We'll start with Pat Roddy.
Madam Chair, I think Pat's in another committee. This is Mike Johansson. Am I signed up next?
You are signed up next. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Mike Johansson on behalf of the Fair Hill Foundation. Fair Hill Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit that was formed to protect and preserve the Fair Hill management area, including the historic racing infrastructure. We recognize that the Maryland General Assembly and the governor have invested about $20 million in this event venue, not only for the five-star event, but for other equestrian events, cross-country, as well as the return of very traditional steeplechase and flat racing. There's a new tremendous turf course that's been constructed, and our goal is to make sure that we bring quality horse racing back. You'll notice that the bill has some very modest changes in the race meet itself. Instead of a mandated minimum of 2 days, if we only need one day, 1 year, we'd be able to do that. And we've taken out some of the specificity on number of flat races, steeplechase races, et cetera. We've worked these changes out in conjunction with Mike Hopkins from the Racing Commission, which would provide flexibility for everyone. So we support the bill. We encourage the investment in the maintenance cost to keep the turf course going. And over time, we will build up a successful, multifaceted operation at Fair Hill. So we support the bill. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Jeffrey Newman.
Yes, thank you. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Fair Hill Organizing Committee and the Maryland Five Star. We're particularly in charge of running and producing the event. So I just want to talk briefly about what the event is and why we're so much in support of this bill. The Maryland Five Star Fair Hill, it's a multi-day international equestrian competition. It's in the Olympic sport and discipline of eventing, which is commonly known as the equestrian triathlon. So it's not a race, it's a multi-day competition. And what does it mean to be a 5-star? Well, a 5-star is the designation that's the pinnacle of the sport. It's higher in terms of competitive difficulty and prestige than even the Olympics. So it's only in 7 places in the world, and we're one of only 7 at this particular time. So, and only the second in the US, as Delegate Hornberg had said earlier, there's one in Kentucky, and we're now just the second. So it's an incredible opportunity for Maryland to have an event that only takes place in 7 places in the world. Other 5-star events are in Kentucky, they're in France, Germany, Australia, and there's 2 in the UK. But had we get this event, well, we went through a very extremely rare and competitive bid process with cities and states and countries from all over the world. And what ultimately won the bid was the creation of the new special event zone, the Fair Hill Special Event Zone, combined with Maryland's rich equestrian history and hosting eventing at Fair Hill. And the potential for this event is that these other 5-star events in the world, they attract anywhere from 80,000 to 125,000 people every single year. Now, they've been around for many, many years, and this would be the first year of the inaugural Maryland 5-star, but that's the potential that these events have and the opportunity to create an economic impact that has shown anywhere up to $30 million on an annual basis for the state of Maryland. So what are the expectations moving forward and the risks, without the proper maintenance of this facility is that clearly as a result of being awarded the 5-star for Maryland, the expectation is that the venue will be continued to be maintained on a first-class basis and world-class basis so that the competition, all the areas in terms of footing is at the highest level and safe for all the competitors. And if that is ever jeopardized as far as the rings, the cross country, the arenas, the turf track, et cetera, these events can be pulled and they can be moved to a different facility or location in the world. So to have the proper maintenance, it is the expectation to have an annual maintenance plan to make sure that the facility is maintained at a high-class, world-class level. Or, again, we jeopardize the future and the success of not only the Maryland 5-star, but other events that could be held at Fair Hill. So we are very much in favor, of course, as an event promoter for this bill, and certainly recognize, of course, that this event could have an incredible impact for Maryland in attracting people from all over the world.
Mr. Newman, your 3 minutes has passed.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Ms. Jay Young? Mr. Young, you're muted.
Okay.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Thank you. What I said was absolutely brilliant. I'm sorry that it didn't come across. I am counsel for the Fair Hill Foundation and also on the board of directors. Frankly, everything I've heard pretty much sums up what I was going to say. So I will just be happy to take questions if there are any. I think what Jeff said about the international, this truly is a world-class event and one of 7 in the world, as he said.
All right, great. We do have one question ready to go. Delegate Ebersol?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So $1.3 million. There's not a great deal of discussion of the bill about what that would be used for, and it seems like the number stays the same every single year. So it says it's for physical maintenance, but it doesn't sound like if it's annual, then it sounds like it's a cost that comes up on a regular basis. So I'm curious how we arrived at the figure and what we expect it to be used for annually. And by the way, I should start off by saying I've been to Fair Hill. We did a tour. I respect it a lot as a facility. So, but I just want to make sure that we're spending our money wisely.
Yeah, and I can answer that, and then I'll let one of the advocates talk there as well. So this money would be spent and invested by the state in a state property. So the ownership of the Fair Hill race, and that's frankly why the 5-star venue wanted to come to the Maryland facility, because there's worry about ownership. They've had other tracks in the past where the owners decided to go a different route. The state's in this forever. They're a good partner. So every time one of these events occurs, as you probably know, and you saw when you visited the track with this committee, that there's damage done to the track. These tracks require a lot of maintenance. There's sprinkler systems that keep the track watered. This is a natural track. It's all green grass, and frankly, these are the overhead startup costs to get this to a point where it's self-sustainable. So all of those are hard costs. The amendment touches on the operational side of it, and that's where the additional $500K comes from. And if anybody else wants to take a bite at that as well, go ahead on the advocate side.
This is Jeff. I think you said it very well. I mean, if you think about, let's take, for example, that the Maryland 5-Star is considered like the Grand Slams of the sports. It's no different than Wimbledon or the Masters, to the sports of tennis and golf. So if you were to have those events annually, you have to maintain the facility for the competition at that level every year. So in order to keep it at that world-class level, it requires this maintenance on a yearly basis in order to host this event every year, but potentially other events that come to the Fair Hill Special Event Zone as well. So it's just, again, a plan to continue to maintain the highest level of footing so that competitors want to come back year in year.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from members? All right, seeing no questions, we are done with the hearing on House Bill 1259, and with the racing and gaming portion of our afternoon, we will switch to economic development. We'll start with 1144 from Delegate Buckle.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 1144 is Western Maryland's moonshot. It is our effort and our attempt in the most reasonable way that we know how. $20 million a year probably really isn't a moonshot, but some of you know I am the co-chair, the House chair of the task force on Western Maryland's economic future. And as I know some of you have heard me say before, unfortunately, the three Western counties, by dint of geography, sometimes by dint of policies emanating from Annapolis, and sometimes because of our own fault. We have to be responsible for ourselves, sometimes because of decisions that ourselves and our forebears have made in terms of economic development. We have fallen behind where many of your jurisdictions are. And that pains me greatly. I think that's why myself and other members of the Western Maryland delegation are here. That's why we got elected. That's why we come here to Annapolis. The task force has a variety of bills. You're going to hear two of them in a row today. You've heard a few in prior weeks. This by far has the largest price tag. And I know that we are all concerned about price tags, but I know that we also recognize that we are routinely passing bills every week that have multi-million-dollar price tags, sometimes very significant price tags in terms of some of the things we're doing with tax policy and credit programs and other things. What this does is it sets up a Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Board and fund that the governor would fund for 5 years at the amount of $20 million a year. The fund would be administered, I won't bore you with all the details of the board itself, but the fund would be administered by a board comprised of both elected officials and also non-elected officials, economic development professionals from the three Western counties that have the most significant economic development challenges ahead of us. If you take a look at any of the testimony submitted, it is jarring. Average wages in Western Maryland is defined as these three counties are $41,205. The state's average is $60,499. I can tell you that when I grew up, when I was a teenager in Allegheny County, that wasn't the case. Allegheny County was one of the better places in the state to live from an economic standpoint. We had a significant reliance on heavy manufacturing. It was heavily unionized. And we also had white collar jobs associated with those plants. We had corporate management for the Kelly Springfield Tire Company, corporate management for what became the Verso Paper Company, engineers, lawyers, procurement experts that worked in a variety of these companies that gave us not only a blue collar economy, but a white collar economy that was scaled to our size, at least for the size of the community. That has mainly gone away. what this fund would do, it's not asking for a handout, it's asking for a program. It would be eligible to supplement economic development programs and projects in the 3 counties, both for infrastructure purposes. Sometimes we have much different infrastructure needs than what some of the urban I-95 counties have. We have areas that need to be opened up for development, quite frankly, that were not opened up for development, and they need basics like water and sewer and things of that nature. We also need broadband expansion, obviously, to facilitate white collar jobs in a more modern 21st century economy. The fund could also be used under the administration of the board to provide matching grants and help and assistance to locate businesses into our area. That is a fundamental flaw. Wonderful places like Montgomery County and Anne Arundel County have very large economic development entities with large staffs and structures. We have very few because of the relative size of our government. We may only have 2 or 3 or 4 people in total who really wake up and are focused in getting a salary to try to work on these projects. So providing them with more incentives, providing them with more arrows to shoot, so to speak, helps to give them a fighting chance to bring businesses to our community. This bill is, again, it is the biggest ask. There are multiple asks, and I understand this is a significant one, but I think we will be back again and again working on this bill, and hopefully we can pass it. I know that Senator Edwards in the Senate believes that the bill is garnering support from the Senate president as part of a bipartisan effort to meaningfully work on economic development for every area of the state, including inner city Baltimore, disadvantaged areas of the I-95 corridor, the lower Eastern Shore, and far Western Maryland. And so that's what it does in a nutshell.
All right, thank you, Delegate. Are there any questions for Delegate Buckle? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the witnesses. We'll start with Mary Clapsaddle.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, I'm Mary Clapsaddle, Director of Government Relations for Frostburg State University. We're very thankful to Delegate Buckle and to Senator Edwards for showing leadership on the task force on the economic future of Western Maryland. We were very pleased to be part of that effort. This fund can really would definitely be a game changer for Western Maryland by focusing the resources and the decision making where people know best what's needed. I mean, I think we've all heard anecdotally that 5 jobs in Montgomery County might not qualify for much government support. The right 5 jobs in Allegheny County or Garrett County or 10 jobs could really spur some additional movement. And so it's very hard to compete on some of these statewide initiatives. And so the idea of having funds that are locally devoted to the local needs and understood as best for what's needed in local area. And there is a match involved, so it's not like the counties wouldn't have skin in the game. But Frostburg, as a member of the task force, would urge a favorable report.
Thank you very much, Ms. Clapsaddle. We'll go next to Julie McCoy.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and thank you to the members of the committee. My name is Julie McCoy. I'm the Executive Director of the Allegheny County Chamber of Commerce. Our chamber is in support of House Bill 1144, and I'm here today to request that this committee give the bill a favorable vote. The establishment of the Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Fund would generate immeasurable opportunities in our region, specifically in Allegheny County. As you know, the task force was formed in 2020 to review the economic future of Western Maryland, and their recommendations were submitted with substantial data that provide a grim overview of the current circumstances, particularly here in Allegheny County. Our population decline of workforce-aged residents, slow and declining growth coupled with tremendous loss of large businesses in the manufacturing industry that dates back to the 1990s It continues to cripple our community. However, our access to institutions of higher education and the partnerships with them, along with a substantial number of collaborative organizations, has allowed our community to respond over and over to the challenges that we've faced, particularly with economic decline. The task force report shows Allegheny County as being the most negatively impacted of the 3 counties, but this has not been through a lack of effort to rise above. We want to serve as a fair contributor to the economy of Maryland. And while this request is of great magnitude, the task force has outlined a progressive and innovative group of recommendations, and they're governed with strategic oversight to serve as a supplemental investment for economic improvement. Thank you for your consideration of a favorable report for the establishment of this vital program here in Mountain, Maryland.
All right, thank you so much. We have 2 more people testifying, and then we'll take some questions. Next, we have Nicole Christian.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Good afternoon. I'm Nicole Christian, President and CEO of the Garrett County Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here on behalf of our 600 members in support of House Bill 1144. As a member of the task force on the economic future of Western Maryland, we reviewed and analyzed economic and demographic data, and it is evident that Western Maryland is declining. Over the last 10 years, the population of Western Maryland has declined by 0.9%, where Maryland's population has grown by 4.4%. Decreases in population result in workforce shortages and reductions in demand for goods and services, and ultimately it leads to economic declines. Western Maryland has suffered a much different fate than the rest of the state. Another critical data point analyzed by the task force was the number of businesses in the region. This number has shrunk in Western Maryland in recent years, and as Julie said, it's not for our lack of trying. Even while this total number of businesses in Maryland has actually increased. According to the task force's interim report from 2010 to 2018, each of the 3 counties in Western Maryland experienced a drop in the total number of businesses. It is imperative that the legislature take action now to help prevent further decline and nurture the growth of this part of the state. The state must move away from its one-size-fits-all approach with economic development programs and recognize that different regions have different needs. The Western Maryland Economic Future Investment Fund will spur economic development in Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington counties by creating a new program specifically designed for this region. As Delegate Buckles stated, the fund provides funding for capital infrastructure and business development projects that must lead to improved economic conditions in Western Maryland. The projects would include a 10 to 20% match and must meet certain metrics, including the creation or retention of jobs, number of new or retained businesses, increased wages, or new state and local tax revenue. An initial pilot period of 5 years for the program has been outlined in the bill with a $20 million annual budget allocation. This is really a minimal request to save an entire portion of the state. Maryland must take action to prevent further declines in the economic conditions of the westernmost part of our state. Please give 1144 a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Christian. We next have signed up Vince McAvoy. Is Mr. McAvoy there?
It's not here.
Not here. I'm checking the waiting room as well. He emailed when he thought he wasn't called the other day. So making sure everyone realized due diligence and looking for Mr. McAvoy. He's not here. Do we have any questions for any of the 3 representatives from the Frostburg State, Allegheny Chamber, and the Garrett Chamber? All right. Thank you all. Seeing no questions, we are done with House Bill 1144. We will move on to House Bill 1169. Delegate Buckle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Jason Buckle presenting House Bill 1169. While the last bill that we heard is a more general, broad-based economic development initiative with a much higher fiscal impact and revenue calculation for the 3 Western Maryland counties, House Bill 1169 is a very targeted, specific idea for a very targeted, specific business, and it dovetails with Frostburg State University. There already is something within the state of Maryland administered by TEDCO called the Maryland Innovation Initiative, or MMI. The Maryland Innovation Initiative is a program which exists to help facilitate the development of technology and technology-based applications that can be commercialized and used for the greater benefit of our state's citizens and to create jobs and economic value at existing four-year institutions in Maryland. Almost all of the institutions are in Baltimore, or the greater Baltimore region. They include Johns Hopkins University, the University of Maryland at Baltimore, the downtown campus, which I am a graduate of, Morgan State University, and UMBC. And then, of course, they also include our state's flagship university in Prince George's County, the University of Maryland, College Park. None of the other four-year state universities are included within the Maryland Innovation Initiative at this time. I believe the program was started somewhere around 2012. And again, is administered by TEDCO to assist those universities in promoting, developing, and commercializing and creating jobs from the great work that the universities do in the technology and innovation sectors. What our bill seeks to do is include Frostburg State University essentially within this program on a pilot basis and fund it for Frostburg State University, not to segregate them out, not to elevate them above the other universities. The funding request is really designed to make sure that we don't take any money away from the Baltimore-based or College Park universities. We're adding a potential applicant to the program, and we don't want to simply do that while maintaining the existing funding levels and create perverse incentives among the universities to compete. And so as a result, that's what the funding element is, the fiscal request itself. Frostburg State is an important, if not one of the most important factors in Western Maryland's economic development future. It is frankly a shame, it is a sin that over the last 30 or 40 years, and as I just mentioned on the last bill hearing, some of it is the state's fault writ large. Some of it is our fault. Some of it is the fault of leaders in Allegheny County and Washington County, where Frostburg State has a campus, a satellite campus in downtown Hagerstown in Washington County. And it is, of course, main campus is located in Frostburg on the western edge of my district and essentially the border of Allegheny and Garrett counties. We have not done a good job for many years in pushing Frostburg State to the forefront and helping to make it larger, bigger, a better economic development force in our community and helping it become more of a technology and innovation-based center. Under the direction of Dr. Ron Nowacek, who's been the president now for the last 3 or 4 years, Ms. Clapsaddle was here, I think, to speak on behalf of. That is starting to change. We are really starting to view Frostburg State as a driving force for our Western Maryland counties, but we need help. We need this legislature's help to include them in programs with similarly situated universities, to help incentivize them to become a bigger technology and economic development creator for Western Maryland and the entire state, and to provide us the funding able to do so. They can't do it on their own. It's difficult for them to do it just through the University of Maryland Board of Regents system because they are one of the small fries in the system. I think they punch above their weight, so to speak, but it's difficult for them to do it on their own. They need our help. And so I ask all of you to give this bill strong consideration. It's a small thing. It really is. It's a small thing. It's a few $100,000. It's including them in a program which already exists, putting them on level footing with places like Morgan State University, which is a great program. We don't want to take away from them. We just want to get on their footing. And while it may be a fairly small thing, it could lead to big results for our community, which is a part of the state that we all live in. So thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you, Delegate Buckle. Any questions for Delegate Buckle? All right, seeing none, we do have a few people signed up to testify. We'll start with Mary Clapsaddle.
Hello again, everyone. Like for the record, this is Mary Clapsaddle, Director of Government Relations at Frostburg State University. Thank you, Delegate Buckle, for bringing this bill forward. When the MII program was created, it was really focused on the research institutions and that trying to solve that riddle of moving something from the bench or the laboratory to a commercial application. So it was structured in that way, given to TEDCO to manage. And so we realize at Frostburg, we don't do the same kind of basic research that College Park might do or UMB might do. But innovation happens anywhere. Entrepreneurship can be anywhere. So we talked with TEDCO about some minor tweaks to the program in terms of being a little bit more more consideration for some partnerships with private business. It doesn't have to come solely from the university. It could be an existing partnership that has now become fruitful. And we are willing, as in the existing program, the participating universities have to pay into the fund. We are willing to pay into the fund. That money benefits TEDCO in that they can hire then site miners who work with the universities, go into the labs with the faculty members and really know, they understand what something commercializable looks like, and they can help bring that along. So we'd be very excited to participate and get some of that site mining assistance as well. And like I say, a couple of years ago, the legislature approved a governor's supplemental budget to create the Division of Regional Development and Engagement at Frostburg, which is working on all kinds of development initiatives for the counties in Western Maryland, and actually some of the, bringing in our West Virginia and Pennsylvania neighbors, like on I-68 corridor activities. And it's really starting to bear fruit. The Innovation Park, which is has had several former names, Allegheny Business Center or whatever, is really, we're getting tenants in there, we're getting partnerships, we're getting more aggressive in federal research grants. Yes, sorry.
You just go right to the end on your.
Right to the end, yes. Frostburg State University urges a favorable report on House Bill 1169. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Artie Thanum. I apologize if I pronounced it incorrectly.
No, that's fine. That was close. For the record, I'm Artie Santhanam. I am the Executive Director of the Maryland Innovation Initiative Program, and also serve on the executive leadership team at TEDCO. And I think I have also with us today Robert Hallenbeck, who's our chair of our MII board of directors, and he's going to testify as well. And as he will testify, and as has been submitted in the TEDCO written testimony to the committee, the MII program has been instrumental in the seeding and growth of the startup ecosystem in Maryland since its inception in 2012. Our focus has been especially in moving technologies from the top research universities to the marketplace. So bench to market or bench to patient, right? As a technology agnostic program, our portfolio is as varied as the participating universities partners. We have funded everything from jet engine designs to clean energy technology to vaccines and therapeutics. Our unique model brings together a diverse university partnership, private school, public school, HBCU, small and large universities, depending on the research portfolio. And regardless of their portfolio size, we are able to allow them to play on a level playing field, which is pretty unique for a tech transfer program. We've also done so while fostering a culture of entrepreneurship and collaboration between these universities. House Bill 1169 will build on the lessons we learned in our research partner, university partnership, and allow us to pilot the same and design a program specifically for a comprehensive university such as Frostburg State University. We anticipate that the pilot program will help us create better informed programming to include comprehensive universities into the MI mainframe. For these reasons, I support a favorable report on the House Bill 1169. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We next have Robert Hallenbeck.
You're muted, Bob.
Sorry, somebody at least had to do the failure to mute thing. Again, my name is Bob Hollenbeck. Since 2012, I have actually been the chair of the MII program. And so I've seen it grow from what was started back in 2012 by the legislature, by the foresight of the legislature, to take a state that ranked 5th in receiving federal and other research dollars, but only was ranked 38th in the commercialization of that technology, to a state that is now ranked 8th in commercialization. And I think the MII program has played a small but important part in that. And we'd like to see how we can adapt the MII program as it exists today into something that will work with Frostburg in a pilot format. You've heard a little bit about site miners. Site miners are a critical step to what is a very rigorous process that the MII program uses to look at and consider technologies that have the opportunity to create important commercial development opportunities. So what we would like to do with Frostburg, working in partnership with them, is to take what we've learned, all of the things that we've learned that work well in the MII program, recognize that Frostburg is not College Park or Johns Hopkins, and try to figure out how can we take the tools that the MII program has and adapt them to Frostburg in order to create a program that will lead and meet the goals of the House bill. I think you're all well aware that Frostburg is really well positioned to begin the pilot program. It has a Center for Regional Engagement and Economic Development, an entrepreneur club for students, a faculty steeped in business management and entrepreneurial expertise, and a community that offers small business incubators, as well as many corporate and university partnerships. We agree that piloting this program at Frostburg will bring invaluable economic opportunity to Western Maryland and provide a constructive template for the future expansion at other state institutions. For this reason, both TEDCO, myself personally, but also the MII board encourage a favorable report on this House bill, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. And are there any questions for any of the three who just testified? I want to thank you all for joining us today and being part of the democratic process. Seeing no other questions, colleagues, we will move next to House Bill 1279, Delegate Lukey.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. So I think this bill there's a perfect segue to this bill from our conversation on the last bill. So this legislation, House Bill 1279, makes a number of alterations to one of our economic development programs. That program is called the RISE program. RISE stands for Regional Institution Strategic Enterprise Zone. And the idea behind the RISE program, when it was created back in 2014, was to create incentives to assist major research institutions in the state, including our R1 and R2 research universities, smaller research institutions, and some of the labs that exist in the state, to allow them to create specific economic incentive zones around them. Those zones were intended to serve the purpose of sort of economic placemaking, of helping to create places where the research that was happening on campus or in the lab was brought off campus or out of the lab and turned into new businesses, new innovative businesses. And so as with any of our major tax credit programs, DLS undertakes a periodic review and analysis of the credit program. And DLS offered a review of the RISE Zone program. The origins of this bill are in that review and in the series of DLS recommendations. And I'll just walk you briefly through what exactly the bill does. I think the bill's in a very good place. It seems to have virtually universal support from anybody who is interested in it. When it was originally created, the RISE Zone program essentially copied a number of provisions and ideas from existing enterprise zones. And those have tended to be somewhat of a mismatch for what we're actually trying to do in a RISE zone. So under the current program, there is a local real property tax credit that a business that locates in a RISE zone can get. There are income tax credits for new hires. There's a business concierge program. Some of those have been utilized in some of the zones. Many of them have not been heavily utilized for various reasons. For example, the intention behind the real property credit was originally to try to help small businesses, find locations next to campuses. But of course, small businesses often tend to be renters and not owners of property. So that real property credit hasn't necessarily produced the results that were originally intended. So the bill repeals and replaces some of the incentives in the current RISE zone structure. It eliminates by 2023 both the employment tax credit and the local property tax credit, which are essentially duplicative, but grandfathers in any businesses which have been able to make use of the credits before the implementation of the bill. In order to help those newly created small businesses with the cost of location, instead of the real property tax credit, the bill creates a budgeted appropriated rental assistance incentive for new businesses. That'll be housed within the Department of Commerce. It'll be matched 3-to-1 by the state with the institution or local jurisdiction. Each RISE zone will be limited to 25% of the money in that fund in any given year unless the money's not used. That's to prevent any one particular RISE zone from sort of using a disproportionate amount of the fund. The bill also would allow businesses located within RISE zones to qualify for the enhanced investment credits under both the biotech investment credit and what's currently the cyber investment credit, although under legislation making its way over from the Senate, that program is going to change somewhat. And then the bill makes a number of other changes that were recommended by DLS. It clarifies what the intent of the program is to make that more clear for the agency and the participants. It caps the size of a RISE zone at 500 acres, and it creates a sunset for the program. Of course, the legislature at the time of that sunset, which would be July 1, 2028, or prior to it rather, would want to take a look, reevaluate, see if these incentives are working for what we intend them to, and then make a decision about whether to extend them. And with that, Madam Chair, I am happy to take any questions. I urge a favorable report by the committee.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Lukey. Any questions for Delegate Lukey? All right. Seeing no questions, I'll call the first person up to testify, Ken Ullman. Good to see you.
Wonderful to see you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for allowing me a few minutes to testify here. Members of the committee, Delegate Lukey, thank you very much for your leadership on this bill. I'll be very brief. My name is Ken Ullman, and I'm here in my capacity and serving as Chief Strategy Officer for Economic Development at the University of Maryland, College Park, and also president of our Terrapin Development Company. We're working hand in hand with university startups to help them grow into job creation engines for the economy of the future, to help our entire state create jobs and enhance the tax base. And what I want to say is the creation of the RISE bill at the time, I strongly favored and still do today even more. But at the time I think we all viewed that the state of Maryland was saying in law that anchor institutions, our great universities, many of them, most of them public universities, play an outsized important role in our economy. There are jobs that are created, spin out startups out of innovative students, faculty, and staff. And I think at the time, well-intended there was a thought to align that with the most significant incentive under the program being the property tax. But as Delegate Lukey said, it just hasn't worked out that way. There has not been one company that has taken advantage of a benefit from the RISE zone. And I think because of that, it has also diminished the appeal of applying to become a RISE zone for many of our institutions and locations around the state. So the University of Maryland College Park is a RISE zone, UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore in the Biopark, Morgan State, Salisbury, and Montgomery College. But our hope is also that this change will also be enticing to Frostburg and to Bowie State University and to many other of the universities that are also playing such a significant role in economic development and job creation. I know here at the University of Maryland College Park, as Delegate Lukey said, it is those companies as they're very vulnerable in the early stage, and I did submit testimony so you can read more detail, but at the early stage when they're just coming out of a lab, when they're raising some early seed money, the biggest challenge they often have is building out lab space, building the tenant improvements that are needed to go into some space and affording rent as they're just making that leap. And if they can get their legs under them when they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 employees, they have a really great to become those dozen, 25, 35 companies. And then whether they stay in that ecosystem adjacent to the university in the RISE zone, that's great. If they move on to another part of the state, that's even better because the universities will provide serve as incubators. I know that we had Larry Tiffany, the CEO of MedCura, that grew out of our lab, scheduled to be here, but he couldn't be here primarily because he's talking to his largest customer, which is a pharmacy with 3 letters that start with a C, where his product will now be on the shelves of every one of those stores around the country. And so we're seeing success. I think this will really improve our ability to create more jobs out of the university. And thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Call on 2 more people and then we'll have some questions. Tom Sadowski.
Yes, thank you, Chair Kaiser, for this opportunity to testify. Members of the House Ways and Means Committee, for the record, my name is Tom Sadowski. I'm Vice Chancellor for Economic Development for the University System of Maryland. And obviously I'm here testifying on behalf of House Bill 1279 and urging your favorable report. I've submitted detailed testimony, so I just want to hit a few highlights. First is to thank Delegate Lukey for showing the leadership in sponsoring this bill and really working closely with us and the DLS, who did do a fantastic job and a comprehensive review of the program. It really helped us identify not only shortcomings of the bill, but strategically where it needed to go to really achieve its intended purpose. So really appreciative for that effort and that leadership on their behalf. Just to lead off, providing some data. 80%, it's well reported across the country that 80% of startups remain, those who survive, they remain in those communities where they first receive their source of investment support or mentorship. This bill proposes such support for those startups in their critical early stages of formation. In the last 8-9 years, the system itself has been responsible for creating nearly 1,000 new startups. It's 110 new startups on average each and every year. Because of the way this bill proposes to direct benefits to those startups, those prospective tenants, we feel very confident that it's going to help us retain and help grow those startups for the long term and keep them in our communities where they can begin to grow jobs and invest in the community services and what have you. It's important to note the governor recently issued a report highlighting the top 20 startups in the state of Maryland today. 15 of those 20 had something to do, some touch point with one of our USM institutions. So we're doing the work. This program would really give us that added help in retaining and growing those companies over time. Fourth point is that industry loves it when markets really put a priority and put a high priority on growing companies like this, making technology commercialization and new venture development a priority strategically and putting in resources in this area. Industry funds over 65% of all sponsored research and development efforts in this country right now. So this bill is going to help us appeal to industry and bring them in a greater way as research partners. You already know the great work that we're doing. College Park and UMB combined, we're one of the top 10 public institutions in the country now for sponsored R&D. Bringing in more industry is going to help us not only bring in more money to fund the research enterprise, but attract the best and brightest to help fuel that. Finally,
Mr. Sadowski, can you just, one more sentence?
Yes, finally, this is going to help us build robust ecosystems in the communities that support our campuses, jobs, investment, community services. So thanks again for your time, and we urge your favorable report on this bill.
Thank you. Mary Morris?
Muting. Thank you, Chair Kaiser and the committee. My name is Mary Morris, and I represent the University of Maryland, Baltimore Office of Research Development. I wanted to give you a little bit of background about the development of this and how this bill will support us. UMB favors the provisions of House Bill 1279, which enables us to foster the expansion of critical high-growth, high-wage jobs in Baltimore City and affiliated with UMB Research and Innovation. Since 2011, UMB has seen consistent growth in technology transfer activities with over 150 disclosures, 30 licenses, and 7 to 10 startup companies each year. These companies not only commercialize technologies, but also have long-term strategic alliances with our researchers, students, and resources. In FY 2020, the university received more than $688 million in research awards, including corporate-sponsored research with more than 300 bioscience and pharmaceutical firms. Some success stories include Harpoon's Medical's acquisition by Edwards Life Sciences in 2017, Bree's acquisition by Abiomed, and Surgigan's by Olympus in 2020. All of those have retained operations in the Baltimore region. And not only have these companies retained and continued to grow their presence in Maryland, but many of the original personnel have gone on to commercialize other technologies, create additional firms, and contribute to Maryland's innovation ecosystem. Clearly, supporting our technologies at the earliest stages has benefits to Maryland's economy. UMB's 14-acre research park, the UM Biopark, is in a rise zone. It's a vibrant home to 30 companies and over 1,000 jobs. We've continued to see the growth of our tenants, such as the acquisition of a very small company named Paragon by Catalent for $1.2 billion just a few years ago, which has resulted in over 1,000 Catalent employees in 3 locations across Maryland. This bill would support expansion of the biopark, which is in the rise zone. We've consistently seen that, similar to findings of national studies, companies that are supported in their early years tend to remain in the area and contribute to the local economy, as well as fostering an ecosystem of innovation. As companies are grown and acquired, we also increase our base of experienced serial entrepreneurs and innovators to commercialize additional technologies. Providing the support specified in this bill for innovation companies at the critical early formation stages is critical to their long-term success and a direct benefit to the University of Maryland, Baltimore, Baltimore City, and Maryland. HB 1279 will allow UMB and the UM Biopark another tool to support innovation, entrepreneurship, and economic development. And for these reasons, we support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have questions. We'll start with Delegate Hornberger.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had 2 questions, technical nature. I was curious, I didn't understand why there was the cap of the 500 acres, if you could speak to that.
That grew, I believe, out of one of the DLS recommendations, and it was really just, we don't want these zones growing sort of out of control. They're intended to concentrate innovation and that innovation ecosystem in a concentrated area around a campus.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question, I looked up the existing zones and that they're all nexus based to a university. So one of the things that we're looking at Hartford Cecil is doing one of these adjacent to Aberdeen Proving Ground because they're constantly coming up with new technology and marketing that. So is it purely for educational institutions only, or?
It is not. In fact, the way the bill was originally drafted in 2014, and this will continue it, there are 3 different institutions which can qualify to anchor a rise zone. One of them is a regional higher ed center like USG in Shady Grove or in Hagerstown. Another, which I believe includes all of the current RISE zone anchors, would be an institution of higher ed as defined in the education article, which includes both community colleges and four-year schools. The third would be a nonprofit organization affiliated with a federal agency. And the intention was, APG or Pax River or NIH or NIST or FDA, any of these big federal research facilities can have the same commercialization benefits that a higher ed institution can. But to date, none of those facilities has created a RISE zone. I think part of the reason to Ken Ullman's testimony is that there's been a little bit of mismatch between the incentives in the program and what's really necessary to do what we're trying to do.
Okay, great. Thanks for bringing the bill.
Thank you, Delegate Hornberger. Any more questions for the three witnesses? All right, seeing none, we are done with the hearing on House Bill 1279 and done with the hearing for today. Any announcements from members, from subcommittee chairs? Delegate Lukey?
Just to members of the Revenue Subcommittee, we had some bills that we had. So we're gonna meet twice next week. Keep an eye on your email. I believe it's going to be Wednesday and Thursday next week to try to get through a lot of the revenue bills we have left.
And then to all the subcommittee chairs, Wednesday afternoon right now is open up for everyone to take some blocks of time in that regard. Delegate Patterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Wednesday today, it's Thursday. Today at 4, the Racing and Gaming Subcommittee will meet once more, beginning at 4. Thank you. On House Bill 940.
All right, Delegate Ebersol?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I was a little slow. I don't have anything to report. We'll probably meet sometime in the middle of next week.
All right, Delegate Wilkins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Election law will definitely meet next week. Just stay tuned for the date and time. I have not confirmed it yet.
Okay, and any other announcements for the good for everyone? All right, I tried, my whole name couldn't quite fit on the screen. It was not only last bill, but call your friends in judiciary. Because they regularly go to 9:30 or more. Delegate Washington, do you have any announcements for your subcommittee?
Nope, we won't have any announcements. We'll be meeting next week.
All right, great. All right,
Should we call them or send them food?
Send who food?
Judiciary food.
Yeah, someone should definitely do that.
You can send them the pizza I bought you last week, okay?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was delicious. All right. 3 p.m. We are voting tomorrow afternoon on about 10, 12 bills from this past week. I thought originally the list was pretty long, but the subcommittees weren't able to get to everything. So it should not be longer than usual. So. All right. See you tomorrow. Take care.
Bye-bye.